How does one construct and maintain an iterate fast and release often philosophy at a startup, especially when you start to scale and complacency comes knocking on your door?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, right, the advantage you have as a startup against an incumbent is speed. And so really building that into the culture is huge. And really the speed is you construct it in order to survive. I think there's that saying by Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Today, I'm honored to interview Atif Siddiqi, CEO and co-founder of Branch, a fintech that enables instant payments for workforces. With over $600 million in funding and an extraordinarily gifted team, myself included, Branch is acting fast on its mission to empower working Americans. Atif, I've got a lot to ask, but I'll stick to my 5 most pressing questions. What do you say?
Let's do it.
In your teenage days, you had worked part-time at a small t-shirt shop in the mall, where you relied on texts and paper schedules to coordinate shifts. 15 years pass and you realize that retailers are still relying on those same paper-heavy methods that are lagging in adopting tech that had otherwise been widely embraced by the desk-based workforce. Seeing the lack of change since working your first hourly job and the pains of workers that were persisting, you set out to create a scheduling technology that streamlined the way workers picked up shifts. And so after joining Idealab as an entrepreneur in residence, you launched Branch, a startup that has since evolved into a fintech and has gone beyond retail to be industry agnostic, but is still driven by the same core mission of empowering working Americans. What did joining Idealab do for you as a founder? Why did you think it was necessary?
Yeah, so for your listeners who might not know what Idealab is, it's a technology studio incubator at Pasadena, California. And, ultimately, a lot of the ideas that were in the companies that were founded were the ideas of the founder, Bill Gross, legendary entrepreneur. I think over time, they opened up the model to entrepreneurs like myself to come in-house and work on ideas that they had a big passion for. And as you mentioned, one of the passions I had was this idea of really trying to figure out how you help working Americans grow financially. And so the resources Idea provided was, one, you had access to Bill, a legendary entrepreneur, spent a lot of time with him, and just, how he thinks about getting to really elegant solutions, solving problems and getting to elegant solutions. A big part of the Idealab philosophy too, they focus on very, very early stage companies, right? It's like idea on the back of a napkin or a PowerPoint, and you have to actually go out and build and test and iterate. And so this idea of how do you go out and build, test, iterate that idea, even before building a product, right? And so a lot of what we did was, kind of show mocks and go walk down. There's a street down in Pasadena called Colorado Avenue that has all these different stores and restaurants. And I would go in and kind of talk to workers and talk to managers about, what we were building. I think the other big thing there too that Idealab does really well is it just makes you realize that any setback or failure is just an opportunity for growth, and that was really ingrained in me as as a founder. And then finally, I would say as a solo founder, the benefit of Idealab was they provided a lot of the G&A functions of a company, right? So they provided you HR, legal, accounting, so you can go focus on, again, talking to customers and building product. And so that was a big deal.
Interesting. So what was in it for Idealab?
There's an equity component for Idealab, and they usually provide the first round of financing into the companies that are incubated there.
You're a solo founder, which is not only impressive, but also uncommon. I've noticed that having a co-founder or even a founding team is widely advocated, simply because the struggles and battles of founding a startup are too great for an individual to bear alone. Incubators and accelerator programs will even go to the extent of turning away solo founders. The same goes for investors. They'll favor companies that are run by collective minds. Was having a co-founder ever a consideration for you? Why did you go at it alone? And what learnings have come out of it now that you would share?
Definitely consideration. I think I went out of it alone just out of necessity. I mean, for me at least, I have a bias for action. And, as I was looking for a co-founder, I didn't want not having a co-founder to slow things down. And so I just kind of kept moving forward there and with the idea. Learnings that come out of going at it solo is you can make decisions fast because it's just yourself. But then you also have to accept, any setbacks yourself as well. I think the toughest thing about being a solo founder is just managing your own psychology, right? There are a lot of ups and downs that go along the way of building a company. And a big part of having a co-founder is being able to share that with you. But for me, I think I tried to surround myself with other founders as well, that were either in the same spot as me or even a couple, stages later, so I can learn from them. And having that network was really valuable for me as, I continue to scale the company.
Startups are able to exist purely because of how quickly they exploit opportunities in the market. That's the single greatest advantage that they have against behemoth corporations. If you don't have speed, you'll get obliterated, as larger companies will have more money, better talent, greater data, superior expertise, and the list goes on. I remember you quoting Reid Hoffman, "If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late." How does one construct and maintain an iterate fast and release often philosophy at a startup, especially when you start to scale and complacency comes knocking on your door?
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, right, the advantage you have as a startup against an incumbent is speed. And so really building that into the culture is huge. And really the speed is you construct it in order to survive. I think there's that saying by Mike Tyson, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face or punched in the mouth. And so ultimately, you have to keep kind of growing and iterating and, moving fast to get to that product market fit and building something customers want. I think at Branch, one of the things that we've done too is that we've built a culture of just being intellectually honest. So it's not, things don't always go up and to the right. And so when things are not going right, just being able to address those failures or mistakes or setbacks head on, learn from them and move forward.
When you're a first-time founder, there's a lot of pain, suffering, and hardship that you face. Experiences come at you hard and very fast, and as you power through, you're forced to realize that there's levels to the problem that you are out to solve. Your naivety quickly gets washed away as you come to terms with reality. There's that steep learning curve where it dawns on you that there's always more to running a successful business than what you see at face value. With that realization, I'd imagine your optimism starts to depreciate over time. So as someone who has founded a number of startups in the past, how has each one of your attempts affected your optimism towards big ideas? Have you become more pessimistic over time?
Well, I think as a founder, first you have to be an optimist, right? Just looking at what starting a company and founding a company, objectively the odds are not great, in terms of success, and so you're defying odds, and having an optimistic attitude definitely helps that. For me, I feel that if anything, that optimism continues to grow, right? As you achieve new milestones, you unlock, new stages of the company. And also, I think, too, when you surround yourself with others on the team that think similar to you, right? I think there's no surprise that, people at Branch, too, have this idea that, we can go win the market. And so it's, you're surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded, and that helps.
When you were an undergrad at USC, you had picked up coding for fun, and it wasn't long before you ended up finding a liking for building software. You then launched a number of startups before ultimately landing on Branch. From everything I've learned, it seems like from the jump you were very entrepreneurial and that the pursuit of business was clear to you. None of this was on accident or an aha moment. There was always an intention to build, to solve a problem. I'd imagine a trait like that doesn't wear off, and it likely intensifies when it's met with success. So I'm wondering, is Branch your end-all, be-all, or do you see yourself doing it all over again one day?
Yeah, no, I think as an entrepreneur, I definitely like solving very challenging problems that are very, very big. I think what we've landed on at Branch is that there's no shortage of things to tackle when it comes to helping working Americans growing financially. And so we definitely have our hands full, and I think we're 100% in this to make this a very, very large company. Whether or not, something comes along down the line later, I don't know, but right now we're all heads down focused on Branch.
Atif, appreciate your time. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, I think for me, it's we're always looking for people, to join the team that think big, move fast, want to win together. So, if your audience out there, if the mission of helping working Americans grow financially is something that resonates, love to hear from you. You can contact me or our amazing host here, Ahmed, who also works at Branch. Thanks.